Assalamu alaikum students. This is your teacher Muhammad Umar Khattak for the subject Project Management, and this is our 14th lecture and chapter number 3. And today the topic of our discussion is special demands on the project manager. Special demands on the project manager. A number of demands are unique to the management of projects, and the success of the project manager depends to a large extent on how capably they are handled. These special demands can be categorized under the following headings. Acquiring adequate resources. The resources initially budgeted for a project are frequently insufficient to the task. In part, this is due to the natural optimism of the project proposers about how much can be accomplished with relatively few resources. Sometimes it is caused by purposeful understatement of resource requirement to ensure that a project is accepted for funding. At times, it is caused by the great uncertainty associated with the project. Many details of resource purchase and usage are deferred until the project manager knows specifically what resources will be required and when. For instance, there is no point in purchasing a centrifuge now if in 9 months we will know exactly what type of centrifuge will be most useful. The good project manager knows there are resource trade offs that need to be taken into consideration. Crises occur that require special resources not usually provided to the project manager. All these problems produce glitches in otherwise smooth progress of the project. To deal with these glitches, the project manager must scramble, elicit, aid, work late, wheedle, threaten, or do whatever seems necessary to keep the project on schedule. A skilled mechanist can make do with unsophisticated machinery to construct needed parts, but a beginning mechanist cannot. Subcontracting can make up for an inadequate number of computer programmers, but subcontractors will have to be carefully instructed in the needs of the contractor, which is costly and may cause delays. Crises occur that require special resources not usually provided to the project managers. On occasion, the additional required resources simply alter the project's cost benefit ratio to the point that the project is no longer cost effective. Obviously, the project manager attempts to avoid these situations, but some of what happens is beyond the project manager's control. The problems of time and budget are aggravated in the presence of phenomena that has been long suspected but only proved in the mid 1980s. The individual who has the responsibility for performing and completing a task sometimes overestimates the time and cost required. That individual's immediate supervisors often discounts the worker's pessimism, but in doing so may underestimate the time and cost. Moving up the management's hierarchy, each successive level frequently lowers the time and cost estimates again, becoming more optimistic about the ability of those working for them to do with less, or perhaps more forgetful about what things were like when they worked at such jobs. The authors have informally observed and listened to complaints about such doings in variety of organization. We suspect they reflect the superior natural tendency to provide challenging work for subordinates and the desire to have it completed efficiently. The mere recognition of this phenomena does not prevent it. Complaints to upper level managements are usually met with a hearty laugh, a pat on the back, and a verbal comment such as, I know you can do it. You're my best project manager and you can. We will consider doubtful ethics in over underestimating resources requirements. Another issue may complicate the problems of resource acquisition for the project manager. Project and functional managers alike perceive the availability of resources to be strictly limited and thus a strict win-lose proposition. Under these conditions, the winner may be those managers who have solid political connections with top management. Often, there are times in the life of any project when success or survival may depend on the project manager's friendship with a champion or a sponsor high in the parent organization. Acquiring and motivating personnel. A major problem for a project manager is the fact that most of the people needed for a project must be borrowed, with few exceptions. They are borrowed from the functional department. The manager must negotiate with the functional department managers for the desired personnel and then, if successful, negotiate with people themselves to convince them to take on these challenging temporary project assignments. Acquiring and motivating personnel. The project manager will be asking for the services of two types of people, most needed and prized by the functional manager. First, individuals with scarce but necessary skills, and second, top producers. Project manager is usually trying to borrow precisely those people the functional manager would most like to keep. A second issue may reduce the willingness of the functional manager to cooperate with the project manager's quest for quality people. At times, the functional manager may perceive the project as more glamorous than his or her function, and hence a potent source of managerial glory. The functional manager may thus be a bit jealous or suspicious of the project manager, a person who may have little interest in the routine work of the functional area, even if it is bread and butter of the organization. The task of motivating good people to join the project does not appear to be difficult, because the kind of people who are most desired are members of a project team are those naturally attracted by the challenge and variety inherent in project work. Indeed, it would not be difficult except for the fact that the functional manager is trying to keep the same people that the project manager is trying to attract. The subordinate who is being seduced to leave the steady life of a functional area for the glamour of a project can gently be reminded that the functional manager retains control of the personnel evaluation, salary, promotion for those people lent out to projects. There may be even be comments about how easy it is to lose favors or be forgotten when one is out of sight. Unless the project manager can hire outsiders with proven ability, it is not easy to gather competent people. But having gathered them, they must be motivated to work. Because the functional manager controls pay and promotions, the project manager cannot promise much beyond the challenge of the work itself. Many of the project personnel are professionals and experts in their respective specialities. Given this and the voluntary nature of their commitment to the project, there is an assumption that they must be managed delicately. The most effective team members have some common characteristics. A list of the most important of these follow, but only the first is typically considered during the usual selection process. High quality technical skills. Team members should be able to solve most of the technical problems of a project without recourse to outside assistance. Even if the relevant functional department has furnished technical specialists to the project, the exact way technology is applied usually requires adaptation by the project team. Political sensitivity. It is obvious that the project manager requires political skills of high order. Although it is less obvious, project managers also need to be politically skilled and sensitive to organizational politics. Strong problem orientation. The chances for successful completion of multidisciplinary projects are greatly increased if project team members are problem oriented rather than discipline oriented. Project managers should adopt a system approach to project management. Strong goal orientation. Projects do not provide a comfortable life or environment for individuals whose focus is on activity rather than on results. Workflow is rarely even, and for professionals, a 60-hour work week is common, as are periods when there seems to be little to do. Clock watchers will not be successful team members. High self esteem. Projects can rapidly get into deep trouble if team members hide their failures or even a significant risk of failure from the project manager. Individuals on the team should have sufficiently high levels of self esteem that they are not threatened by acknowledgement of their own errors or by pointing out possible problems caused by the works of others. Dealing with obstacles. One characteristic of any project is its uniqueness, and this characteristic means that the project manager will have to face and overcome a series of crises. These crises, such as changes in the required project performance, better known as scope creep, affect not only the project but the project manager as well, and his or her ability to make trade offs to keep the project on track. From the beginning of the project to its termination, crises appear without warning. The better the planning, the fewer the crises. But no amount of planning can take account of the myriad of changes that can and do occur in the project's environment. The successful project manager is a firefighter by vocation. At the inception of the project, the fires tend to be associated with resources. As the project nears completion, obstacles tend to be clustered around two issues. First, last minute schedule and technical changes, and second, a series of problems that have as their source the uncertainty surrounding what happens to members of the project team when the project is completed. Generally, it is known as projectitis, the feeling of uneasiness or nervousness at the end of the project experienced by the team members of the project about their futures, as what will happen to them, and whether they will get a job, and what will happen to the working team that they have so much lovingly developed. Making project goal trade offs. The project manager must take trade offs between project goals of cost, time, and performance, and of course, the ancillary goals. The project manager must also make trade offs between project progress and process, that is, between the technical and the managerial function. At the beginning of the life cycle, when the project is being planned, performance was felt to be the most important of the goals, with cost and schedule sacrificed to the technical requirements of the project. Schedule is the dominant goal during the build up stage. being significantly more important than performance, which is in turn significantly more important than cost. Making project goal of trade offs. The second set of trade offs concerning sacrificing smoothness of the running of the project team for technical progress. Near the end of the project, it may be necessary to insist that various team members work on aspects of the project for which they are not well trained or which they do not enjoy, such as copying or collating the final report. If the project manager directs more than one project, he or she must make trade-offs between the several projects. Project manager will be involved in decision making choices that require balancing the goals of the project with the goals of the firm. Such choices are common. The project manager must make trade off decisions between the project, the firm, and his or her own career goals. Failure and the risk and fear of failure. The failures often appear to result from the inability to solve the project's technical problems. In fact, they result from a failure to define project requirements and specifications well enough to deal with the technical glitches that always occur. The occurrence and solution of technical problems tend to cause waves of pessimism and optimism to sweep over the project staff. There is little doubt that these swings of moods have destructive effect on performance. Breadth of communication. Most of the project manager's time is spent communicating with the many groups interested in the project. Running a project requires constant selling, reselling, and explaining the project to outsiders, top management, functional departments, clients, and a number of other parties at interest to the project, as well as to the members of the project team itself. The project manager is the project liaison with the outside world. Negotiations. In order to meet the demands of the job of the project manager, acquiring adequate resources, acquiring and motivating personnel, dealing with obstacles, making project goal trade offs, handling failure and the fear of failure, and maintaining the appropriate patterns of communication, the manager must be a highly skilled negotiator. That would be the end of the lecture. Thank you.